Hello, all the viewers at Star Canada TV. This is IndranilChaudhury with one more episode of the election round. We have today with us Mr. Nigel Logan, who is not a new name. People know in the community about Nigel Logan very well. So he has taken out some important 1 hour or so from his election campaigning. And as you know, the election is on Monday. So we will be having a very informal conversation with Nigel Logan. Nigel, welcome to our Star Canada show.
Thank you for having me, Indra.
Thank you. So you are not a unknown name or a face, and people know you're in the neighborhood all the time. You have run, I believe, for a city election too. So your name recognition is pretty high. So first and foremost, we would like to wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
And for the benefit of our viewers, the most important question we have here to start with is, who is Nigel Logan as a person? What are the interests and passions in life? If Nigel Logan has a little bit of free time, what he would like to do, and how does he wear so many hats and manages his time between his important schedules and his family?
Well, it's scheduling, really. You know me from a few organizations here in Edmonton Mill Woods. So on the board of Alberta Hindi Parishad, I'm learning Hindi. Je parle aussi le français. It's really about my commitment to the community. Some people have asked me, what are your hobbies? Well, my hobbies are connecting with people. And further to that, learning languages is certainly a passion of mine.
Excellent. And congratulations, you have recently got married, I believe. That's the reason I asked this question. How do you manage your time between your busy schedule and how much time you can give on a given day to your family?
Well, the election period is a bit of a tough one because it's 12, 14 hours a day. But my wife is very understanding. She's organized events of her own, so she knows sort of what goes into it. And but yeah, we have a good understanding, and she's helping me out tremendously on this campaign.
Thank you very much. Now we will go back to Nigel Logan as a politician. So, kindly summarize for us, for our viewers over here, the most important salient points of the NDP platform.
Absolutely. As you can expect, I've been door knocking here in Mill Woods for quite some time. We're previous in the provincial election and municipal election, and going back several years, the number one issue that keeps coming up is affordability. It's the same in this federal election. People are concerned about rising healthcare costs, cost of living. The price of maybe a mortgage or the rent goes up, but their paycheck doesn't. And we've seen with Liberal and Conservative governments, frankly, that really are not focused on these problems. They're focused on giving tax breaks to people at the top. The Trudeau government meeting with SNC Lavalin several hundred times, or pharmaceutical manufacturers several hundred times. They're not in it for us, in my opinion. Our platform is the NDP's platform. We're focused on helping the average person directly. That means introducing universal pharmacare, which should save the average family $300 to $500 a year, even more if you're a senior. We want to start working on affordable housing issues. We know that 22% of Mill Woods residents pay more than 30% of their income towards rent or their mortgage. What are the Liberal and Conservatives doing to address that? So we have a comprehensive plan that's going to help address that.
Okay, so when you talk about pharmacare, it is over and above what is already there. So how are you bridging the gap?
Right. So right now, as a province, so Alberta or BC or Ontario, we're all paying. We're buying it collectively, but we're all Alberta's 4 million people. BC is another 4 million people. Our proposal involves having all 37 million Canadians purchase pharmaceutical drugs collectively. And the Parliamentary Budget Office has indicated that this would save us, this would essentially fund the program and eliminate a lot of costs that you might have for a private program that may not even cover everything. This is why we talk about saving families $300 to $500 a year. You don't have to pay into a program at work anymore, but you can go to the pharmacy when you need it. It's a win-win. If you can't afford your prescription for high blood pressure medication or something of the like, and you end up in hospital, $100 prescription cost is significantly cheaper than the $5,500 a day it costs for a hospital bed. So we want to have a more humane system, but also a more fiscally responsible system.
Very well said. Now my next question is it a prudent idea to borrow funds for fiscal development, infrastructure development. Uh, then I'm going to put the two opposing points here. The conservatives think that they will balance the budget in 5 years by doing lots of cuts.
Mhm.
And for the liberal, I do not see any plan to balance the budget even in the future horizon as well. So where do your party stand?
Well, a budget is important. We have to remember that some debt is good and some debt is bad. If all debt was bad, none of us would be able to get a mortgage,
Sure.
for example. But cutting the way to doing it ultimately puts, the conservative approach puts an infrastructure debt. And we've seen this provincially, going back to even Ralph Klein, where it costs significantly amounts more money to fix the problem later on when the bridge is crumbling as opposed to repairing it as we go along. The NDP plan is focused on, instead of, you talked about the Liberal deficit. Part of that is because they're still giving tax cuts to big people at the top, SNC-Lavalin types, big corporate tax breaks. But really, is that spurring the economy? And we don't think so. We think putting money in people's hands is what's going to spur economic development.
So is the balanced budget thing of the past now?
I don't think so, but we have to make sure that when we're talking about balanced budgets, we're making sure we're not escaping the debt to GDP ratios, and making sure again that if you're going to give a cut, you're going to a tax cut, for example. Who is getting that tax cut? Is it somebody that's going to spend money right here and now in today's economy, maybe by fixing your car or buying groceries, or is it going to go to someone at the top so they can buy a villa in France, for example? So that you have to be sure who you're targeting with that tax cut.
Oh yeah, and Canada is the best in terms of debt to GDP ratio among the G7 nations and AAA rating as well.
Yeah.
So do you think that the austerity measures which are enforced by few of the parties around the world it's not going to happen here if your government is elected?
I don't think austerity measures work at all. You can expect that answer. We've seen data from the United Kingdom where several 100,000 people have been tied to conservative austerity measures there have died. We don't want the same thing here. And we're talking, but when we're talking about Canada, we're still talking about investing in people. Being that I'm running to be a politician here, I feel like I should mention that the Liberals talk about we're going to help these people, we're going to invest in people, but really, when they're talking about investing in people, who are they investing in? They're still meeting with lobbyists. They're still meeting with those those big companies, and giving tax breaks and advantages to those people. Why not people like you and I?
Well said. Now the burning issue, the pipeline. There is a belief that pipeline is the most important factor for survival of Alberta and also certainly Canada. And there are opposing views, completely opposing views. The Conservatives would certainly make it. Liberals would also make it. Green Party says that they will phase out fossil fuel in 10 years, so completely opposite. So we'd like to know your views, your NDP's platform over here.
Yeah, so the NDP, again, the theme we have going on here is that we're focused on the average person. I don't think, climate change is important. It's real. We have scientists that say we have to do something about it. But if you're leaving people behind, perhaps like in the Green Plan, you're never going to get anything done. But Liberals and Conservatives again are investing in the old economy. We already see results now that the Americans are now outproducing us. They were our previous customers. So we need to go to where the economy is going. So the NDP has a plan to create 300,000 new jobs in the green energy sector, and assist oil sector workers with retraining and moving into those new sectors. You can't just say we've created a bunch of jobs like in the Liberal platform, but only make it part-time and jobs that are not very stable, maybe part-time work. A lot of the people in the oil patch are working on a contract basis, so they're not even getting the EI benefits or the CPP benefits that we would expect. We're focused on those people. We want to get them opportunities to retrain so that they can help develop the new energy sector, and because we know this is the way the economy is going. It's an economic argument and it's a climate change argument at the same time.
Very well said, but at the end of the day, you stand on pipeline, yes or no?
So we know the pipeline's going ahead.
Okay.
I have family that will be working on it. I'm just concerned about the 3 to 4 years after it's built. 3,000 to 4,000 jobs for 3 to 4 years. Great, that will get some money in the economy that way. But what happens? Are we going to have another round of layoffs and bankruptcies after that? So what's the plan to get those workers into something that's more sustainable?
Okay. So Global Mail just mentioned that none of the leaders have really concentrated in Alberta. So would you like to elaborate a little bit more about it?
I think this is partly because it's difficult to change minds in Alberta. The polls right now, so 60% of Albertans are going to go vote Conservative. Now, that irrespective of individual ridings, it makes it very difficult for other parties to make inroads there. And I think this is a kind of a chicken and egg problem. Albertans want to see parties pay attention to them, but they also have to lend their vote to those parties that are not Conservative, for example, the NDP, in my case, because if the vote is not competitive, they're not going to target programs that are meant for Albertans, like we might see in the Greater Toronto Area or Vancouver or other places where you can see wide swings.
Okay, well said. Another very important question for the viewers is that on climate change. So, in the scenario that there is a hung parliament, would your party be supporting, say for example, Liberal, keeping in mind that climate change agenda with Conservative is completely diametrically opposite? And for example, Greta Thunberg, she was there in Montreal and the Conservative leader did not even show up. So in this scenario where climate change is so important for your party, is there any chance that in case of hung parliament, your party can even support Conservatives?
Well, let me just say, climate change is not just important for our party, it's important for everybody. It's a global issue. We believe the science on the matter, and we have to act according to certain UN targets that show that we need to reduce the rate of temperature growth. But from what we see in the Conservative Party, the leader Jagmeet Singh talked about we wouldn't support the Conservatives. It's partly because they are diametrically opposed. We have 6 priorities, of which climate action is an important one of those. And if the Conservatives are not even going to negotiate, then how can we in good faith support them in government?
Well said. In terms of economy and job creation, Alberta is going through such an important phase where it is very hard to sustain. What is your party is going to do to create more jobs and to give a boost to the economy?
Right. So this goes back to the diversification program that we mentioned. And this has been a sort of a fun word that people have thrown around for a couple of decades now in this province. We've seen booms and busts. But really, again, we see every time Alberta's in a recession, the rest of the country is booming. And it seems like when Alberta's booming, the rest of the country goes into recession. We need to even those out. I believe that it's unpredictable for if you're say a business owner and you want to invest in a factory or a manufacturing facility here and you need 200 employees. Well, if you don't know if the unemployment rate is going to be 4% or 10%, there's an economic instability for non-oil sector investment. And so we want to smooth some of that out. Part of this is our job creation program to create 300,000 new jobs and start in some ways continue the work that Rachel Notley was doing as NDP Premier in providing new industries and new ways of getting ahead that are not oil and gas sector related.
Okay, Lali, we'll do a quick. So, Mr. Nigel Logan, now we are at a juncture which is very interesting. It's called the buzzer round. Very interesting for our viewers and listeners. So, I'm going to throw out just one word at you, and you can elaborate. And I know it's very extempore round. You haven't prepared for it, but I know you will be able to handle it very well. Shall we start?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, cell phone bills.
Too high. I do honestly think that when we compare Canada, we pay the most in the world, And when we compare Canada to a country like Australia, which is a similar level of development, similarly sparsely populated, and yet their bills are 1/4 the price, what are we doing? So we have a plan to reduce cell phone bills and start tackling some of the economic, or shall we say, the industry factors that lead to such high prices.
Pharma care and dental care.
We're well past the need of this. I suppose that's not one word. But absolutely, I talked about affordability.
Yeah.
Pharmacare and dental care are absolutely, dental care was originally supposed to be part of universal Medicare. Now, pharmacare, Canada is the only OECD country that does not actually include drugs as part of the universal health care.
Carbon tax.
A tool, but not the entire, but it shouldn't be the only thing. We need to address it. We need to address the demand side of things when we're talking about reducing carbon emissions, but we can't forget the workers.
Excellent. Pipelines.
Going ahead, I should say. But I also want to say unsustainable. If we only have one major pipeline left, which is increasingly looking more and more likely, then what are we doing after that for industry sustainability and job sustainability?
International relations, focusing on US, China and India.
Diplomacy. I think Canada, while we are a G7 country, we are not a military power. Our role, I think, as Canada, and even generally, when we're talking international relationships should be on peacekeeping and fostering dialogue between nations. So when we come to India, China, and the United States, those are the big three economic powers, and rising economic and current economic powers in the world, and we need to foster better relationships with all three. I would add the EU in that as well.
Okay. You can elaborate a little bit on the canola and also that what happened with the extradition treaty with Canada and US. What is happening now, and Canada is getting unnecessarily embroiled into the controversy. If you want to say a little bit more.
Well, it's a controversy. I don't really have much to say about it because we have to rely in the impartiality of our court system. And we have certain treaty obligations with the United States and other countries. For example, on extradition. But I don't think it's fair that a country like China, or a theoretical other country would use as an economic tool to try and force a change in our court results. We have an impartial system. We as a rule, we don't allow politicians to interfere, and we should continue that tradition. Even I think the focus now should be looking for new markets for that canola oil. If China's going to play that kind of role with us.
Okay, so like Huawei technology now, it's going to be associated with 5G. Canada will soon have to take a decision to go with it, not to go with it. What is your stand?
So, I have an IT background. Yeah. I know there's a lot of technical issues with Huawei, with even American providers of network equipment. Canada has to strike a balance in terms of security and but not just on economic space, but we also have national security as well, and we can't necessarily throw that off to the side. But Canada has to make its own decisions. At this time, I don't have enough data to be able to make a call one way or the other. But there are some guiding principles in that we need to protect our networks. We also need to make sure that we're not starting an economic war with the country unnecessarily as well.
Jobs and economy.
The number one issue in every election. But really, again, I was talking about affordability. People want good jobs and they want a functioning economy so they can pay for the things that they want and they need. So we want to address the affordability factor, and we believe with our Green Jobs Creation Program that we can also address get Canada's economy ahead of the curve instead of always trying to catch up with other countries that are much further ahead of us on, say, green energy technology.
Edmonton and Millwoods.
My home. I moved to Millwoods when I was 18 to go to school from a very small town with not much diversity, and it's been. But then I come to Millwoods and there's 100 languages, people from 100 different countries, 5 major religions. It's a beautiful place. My wife is from another country, and I feel like I've been really blessed by Millwoods. I love it here.
Okay. Now, our top 3 messages to the constituents of Millwoods, and why you think you are the best candidate to be voted.
Well, as I said a few times in this interview, the NDP is focused on affordability. Affordability for you, putting money in your pocket. I've had seniors come up to me and ask me about the CPP and OAS, but I think this is almost the wrong question. Why are we not reducing their pharmacare costs? They can cost $300 to $500 a month, and as we know, on the public health care side, prevention is always cheaper than the cure, than in emergency care, whether that's for pharmaceuticals, whether that's for hearing or dental coverage or any of these things. The other thing I keep hearing about is, of course, the economy. And Alberta has a boom and bust economy going back many years. Peter Lougheed even talked about it in the 1970s, and Peter Lougheed's grandfather went bankrupt because of it back in the 1930s. We're still having the same conversation 3/4 of a century later. Our plan is really to get Alberta ahead of the curve, so we're not so boom and bust based, and we can have a more even economy. And I think this will attract more economic investment, just simply because we'll have a more predictable economy for which companies can and new startups can look into for number of employees and so on. Finally, diversity. Racism, this keeps coming up. Jagmeet Singh has been facing this a lot during the campaign, and we have the most diverse slate of candidates across the country, bar none. And I think it's about time that we stop looking at people's religion or skin color as qualities of the person and look at the actual person first and foremost when we're considering who we want for a leader, when we're considering who we want for a neighbor. I think it's deplorable that parties are taking political points on this, and we would like to see that. We're going to have a strategy to address these kind of issues as part of our goals in Parliament.
Wow. Very well said, Mr. Nigel Logan. All the very best to you. Happy Diwali to you and to the viewers of Star Canada. This is IndranilChaudhury signing off with one important message. On Monday, October the 21st, do exercise your right to vote. Thank you.